The day Earth died. The vast darkness of space lay quiet before the attack. From the observation deck of the HSS Vengeance, the crew watched Earth as a beautiful blue sphere. They never expected it to become a graveyard in a matter of hours. The day began like any other, with routine checks and casual conversations. Scientists studied star maps, pilots joked about old flight stories, and engineers inspected vital systems. But everything changed when the warning alarms erupted across every deck of the ship. High above Earth's atmosphere, Captain Elias Grayson stood at the command bridge. He was a tall man, known for his calm spirit and careful thinking. Today, however, his eyes showed fear. Reports flooded in. An unknown fleet was approaching Earth at high speed. At first, no one believed it could be hostile. Humanity had peace treaties with most alien species in the region, but the sensor readings were clear. This was not a friendly visit. All at once, the screens on the bridge lit up with red alerts. 20 massive warships emerged from faster-than-light travel. Their glowing weapons pointed directly at Earth. They called themselves the Dominion, and they brought destruction with them. Before the humans could send a proper greeting, beams of pure energy rained down on Earth's surface. Cities burst into flames, oceans boiled, and mountains crumbled under the relentless assault. On the Vengeance, shock and horror spread through the crew. Lieutenant Mara Vasquez, one of the best tactical officers, froze for a moment as she watched her home city vanish in a bright flash on the screen. She could not breathe, and tears filled her eyes. Around her, other officers gasped or shouted in disbelief. They all knew Earth's defenses were strong, but even the mightiest orbital cannons and shield networks stood no chance against the Dominion's power. Captain Elias demanded a report. His voice was tense as he tried to maintain control. The sensor chief, Ensign Wilcox, explained in a trembling voice that the Dominion fleet was attacking without mercy. Earth's defense grid had failed in minutes. Communication lines from the planet fell silent one by one. Soon, only static remained where once there had been busy chatter between bases and outposts. Despite the panic, Elias knew he had a duty to protect as many people as possible. He ordered the Vengeance to lower its landing bays and rescue any escaping shuttles or civilian ships. The Vengeance was a massive interstellar carrier, built for deep space warfare. It was the pride of the Terran Navy, now forced into a desperate evacuation. All over the planet, small craft tried to flee, searching for any safe place beyond Earth's orbit. Within hours, the planet's surface was scared by endless blasts of alien weaponry. The skies filled with smoke and ash. Millions of lives ended in an instant, with no chance to fight back. Even the global bunkers, once thought invincible, melted under the Dominion's superior firepower. The rest of the Terran fleet was caught off guard, scattered across the solar system. One by one, the Dominion picked them off. Elias and his crew felt the weight of guilt. They wished they could do more. The Vengeance managed to receive a handful of refugee ships, but there was no way to save the entire planet. Survivors, scientists, engineers, soldiers, and families crowded the lower decks, many of them shaking with fear and grief. Some cried for loved ones left behind. Others simply stared at the walls, shock turning them silent. Outside the windows, the once beautiful Earth glowed with an eerie orange hue. Night and day no longer mattered. The entire planet was wrapped in flames. On the bridge, no one dared to speak. The crew watched as the Dominion warships maintained their orbital bombardment. It seemed like the enemy wanted to make sure every trace of human civilization was erased. Then, as swiftly as they arrived, the Dominion turned their attention to the Vengeance. Sensors showed that several enemy cruisers were changing course. They aimed directly for humanity's last major warship. Elias understood that the Vengeance could not win a head-on fight against so many hostile vessels. The ship's weapon systems were strong, but not strong enough to face an entire invasion fleet alone. "Bring us into jump range," Elias ordered. His voice carried the pain of what he was about to do. They had no choice but to retreat. If they stayed, they would be destroyed along with Earth. Lieutenant Vasquez quickly entered coordinates for a nearby star system. It was a place with fewer Dominion patrols, a spot where the Vengeance could hide and regroup. As the engines powered up, the Dominion fired their first shots at the carrier. The hull trembled under the hits, and sparks flew from overhead panels. Alarms blared across the decks, and the ship's AI warned of critical damage. Still, the Vengeance held firm. With a final burst of energy, the hyperdrive engaged. In a brilliant flash of light, the carrier jumped away from Earth's orbit. Silence fell on the bridge. The crew felt both relief and crushing sorrow. They had escaped certain death, but they had also left their home behind. Images of Earth's final moments lingered in everyone's minds. The planet was gone, or at least no longer the lush, living world they knew. The Dominion had done the unthinkable. They had destroyed humanity's cradle in a single devastating assault. Elias stood by the main viewport, his hands curled into fists. He made a silent vow to avenge Earth. He remembered the people who had placed their hopes in him and the Vengeance. He remembered the bright future that humanity had dreamed of among the stars. Now all that remained was darkness, blood, and the burning desire for payback. The rest of the crew felt the same rage in their hearts. No matter how impossible it seemed, they would find a way to fight back. Earth was destroyed, but the spirit of humanity lived on inside the Vengeance. As the ship traveled through the void, its engines roaring with determination, every survivor realized a single truth. This was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter of survival, unity, and revenge. In the far distance, the Dominion fleet reorganized, preparing to hunt down any survivors. The day Earth died was only the first step in their plan. Yet, on the HSS Vengeance, a spark of hope still glowed, fueled by pain and anger. If the Dominion believed that humanity was finished, they were wrong. This carrier and its people would soon show the galaxy that humans, even on the brink of extinction, could still strike back. The survivor's vow. The HSS Vengeance drifted through the cold void, light years away from the burning ruins of Earth. The survivors on board carried grief like a heavy weight on their chests. Each passing hour reminded them of the loved ones they had lost and the home they would never see again. But alongside sorrow, another feeling began to grow. Anger. They refused to let Earth's memory fade away without a fight. Captain Elias Grayson stood in the war room, a circular chamber with a large central table. Tactical screens lined the walls, showing scattered images of the galaxy and nearby systems. Dim lights highlighted the grim expressions of the senior officers gathered around him. Lieutenant Mara Vasquez, still shaken from the sight of her home city's destruction, listened in silence. Engineer Cho Lin, a calm presence despite the tragedy, studied a tablet displaying ship diagnostics. Dr. Inea Burgess, head of medical, hovered near the doorway, prepared for any emergency. Their meeting began with a simple question from Elias. How do we strike back? No one answered right away. On one hand, the Vengeance was a powerful interstellar carrier, equipped with advanced weapons and technology. On the other hand, the Dominion had proven itself far stronger than any alien threat humanity had faced before. Their swift annihilation of Earth showed they were not interested in mercy or peace. They wanted humanity gone. Finally, Lieutenant Vasquez found her voice. Our people need hope, she said. They need to see that we can still fight. If we run and hide, we become easy targets. Elias nodded, leaning over the tactical table. A holographic map of nearby star systems flickered into view. One point in particular caught his eye. Andromeda Expanse, a remote region known for hidden colonies and pirate havens. A blinking distress signal lit up in that area. It was an automated human broadcast, a call for help from a small outpost that had gone silent a few days ago. We have a duty to answer that call, Elias said, pointing at the blinking signal. There might be survivors there, or it might be a trap. Either way, we cannot ignore it. A murmur passed through the room. Some officers were hesitant. The Vengeance had taken damage during its escape from Earth, and the repair crews needed more time to fix the engines and shield generators. Jumping into an unknown situation could be dangerous. But Elias's mind was set. "We cannot wait," he stated firmly. "Any delay might cost lives. We will go, but we will be ready for anything." The officers exchanged looks. They all understood the risk. They also understood that every human life mattered more than ever. Elias tapped a command into the console, sending new orders throughout the ship. The Vengeance would change course to investigate the source of the distress signal. As the massive carrier powered up its engines, the atmosphere inside shifted. Crew members whispered rumors of the mission. Some were terrified, believing they should stay hidden. Others were eager to strike back, to prove that humanity still had teeth. Morale, while low, gained a spark of determination. People wanted revenge. Down in the engineering deck, Cho-Lin oversaw a team repairing the hyperdrive. Loose cables and damaged hull plates littered the corridor. Sparks crackled from broken circuitry. While others cursed the situation, Cho stayed focused on her work. She understood that if the hyperdrive failed, they would be stranded. She also knew the importance of repairing the advanced rail cannons and plasma lances that the Vengeance carried. Every moment counted. Dr. Burgess, meanwhile, walked through makeshift medical wards packed with wounded. She did her best to comfort the refugees who had escaped Earth. Many bore injuries from the Dominion attack, burns, broken bones, and deep psychological trauma. Children clung to their parents, lost and afraid. Burgess did everything in her power to provide reassurance. She knew that a calm spirit could be as healing as any medicine. Captain Elias made several visits to these makeshift shelters. Each time, survivors begged him to promise safety. He wished he could, but he also knew the truth. There was no safety left in the galaxy, not while the Dominion hunted them. Still, he offered kind words, encouraging them not to lose hope. He believed that unity was the only advantage humanity had left. After 2 days of frantic repairs and navigation, the Vengeance arrived at the edge of the Andromeda expanse. Vast clouds of cosmic dust swirled against the darkness, hiding secrets within their thick nebula. The distress signal pulsed louder now, drawing them deeper into a region that sensors labeled as dangerous. Static interference made it impossible to get a clear reading of what lay ahead. Tension spread across the carrier. Battle stations were manned in case of an ambush. Pilots sat in their fighters, ready to launch at a moment's notice. The deck crews worked double time, loading torpedoes and energizing beam cannons. Elias scanned the sensor data on the bridge, searching for any sign of a Dominion presence. So far, the scans showed no large enemy ships, but the dust clouds could hide entire armadas. Finally, they saw it. On the main screen, the small outpost appeared as a group of domes on a rocky planetoid. The surface was pockmarked with craters, and the structures looked damaged. Faint lights flickered from one dome, suggesting some form of power still ran inside. No transmissions came from the colony, other than the repeating distress call. Lieutenant Vasquez tensed. "It's too quiet, Captain. I don't like it." Elias shared her concern. Agreed. "We'll proceed carefully. Prepare a landing team." The plan was to send a small group to investigate the colony. If there were survivors, they would bring them aboard. If there was a trap, they would spot it early. Elias personally selected the members of this landing party: Vasquez, a few elite Marines, and a medical officer. Elias wanted to go himself, but his officers insisted he stay on the Vengeance to coordinate from above. Reluctantly, he agreed. As the landing craft descended, the rest of the crew watched nervously from the carrier. The planetoid's rough surface made it tricky to land, and the dust storms outside reduced visibility. Vasquez kept her breathing steady while the craft's engines roared. A million thoughts ran through her mind, memories of Earth, of her family, and of the vow she made to fight until the Dominion paid for their crimes. With a soft thud, the landing craft settled near the colony's main dome. The Marines spread out, weapons raised, scanning the area with flashlights. The air outside was thin, and they wore protective gear to breathe. Bits of metal and shattered glass crunched under their boots. The once active settlement felt like a ghost town. Dark corridors led to silent rooms, each telling a story of sudden abandonment. "Stay sharp," Vasquez whispered into her helmet comm. "If anyone's alive, they might be hiding." Step by step, they advanced deeper into the structure. Faint lights flickered above them, and wires dangled from the ceiling. Occasional sparks of electricity crackled, breaking the silence. They found signs of a struggle, a blood stain on a wall, overturned tables, scattered tools. Yet, no bodies. Finally, they reached a sealed hatch leading to the colony's command center. Vasquez tapped a control panel. To her surprise, the door slid open slowly, revealing a dimly lit room. Consoles and monitors glowed with faint power. At the center, a figure slumped against a station, motionless. Cautiously, the team approached. The figure was a middle-aged man in a torn uniform. He held a recording device in his hand. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. A Marine knelt beside him to check for signs of life. "He's alive," the Marine announced, relief in his voice. But just barely. Vasquez signaled the medical officer, who quickly began first aid. As the doctor worked, Vasquez inspected the rest of the room. On one screen, the distress beacon signal repeated on a loop. Another screen showed a grainy video feed of something outside the colony, a silhouette that appeared alien in shape. Then the man stirred. His eyelids fluttered open, and he tried to speak. His voice was weak, almost lost in the hum of broken machinery. "You came," he whispered. They took them. Dominion, not alone." His words trailed off, and he fell unconscious again. But the meaning was clear. The Dominion had been here, and perhaps they had help. Who, or what, had joined forces with the Dominion to hunt humanity? Vasquez felt a chill run down her spine. She clicked her comm channel open to the Vengeance. "Captain, we found a survivor. The colony's been attacked. It looks like the Dominion might have allies. We need immediate extraction and a full security sweep." Above them, in orbit, Captain Elias listened to her report. His jaw tightened, and he nodded grimly. He could sense that the scope of the threat was expanding. Yet he also felt a surge of determination. This was only the beginning of the war for survival. He could not let fear stop him. Humanity would not fade into the night. They had suffered a terrible loss, but now they would fight with everything they had. For Earth, for the future, for revenge. That was the vow every survivor aboard the HSS Vengeance silently made, as they realized the Dominion was not the only enemy lurking in the shadows. Something far worse might be waiting just beyond their sight, but they would face it, no matter the cost. The carrier's dark secret. Back on the HSS Vengeance, the mood was tense. The small rescue team had returned from the planetoid with a single survivor, a middle-aged man named Alec Cormack, who had mumbled warnings about the Dominion having unexpected allies. After a quick landing in the hangar bay, Lieutenant Mara Vasquez rushed him to the medical ward, where Dr. Inaya Burgess and her staff worked to keep him alive. Captain Elias Grayson received updates through his earpiece while standing at the command bridge. His posture was rigid, and worry lined his face. He hoped this survivor could give them answers. Earth's destruction still haunted every moment, but now there was a new layer of dread. If the Dominion had partners, then humanity's situation was even worse than they had thought. Cho Lin, the ship's lead engineer, joined Elias near the main tactical display. She brought fresh data from the colony site. "Captain, we found strange tech signals in the outpost," she said. "They match some form of advanced energy signature, not Dominion-made. I think we're dealing with a new enemy, or at least new technology." Elias nodded, his jaw tight. "I want a full analysis. We can't afford surprises." An alarm beeped on the console, drawing his attention. It was a priority message from the medical ward. Elias and Cho hurried there, weaving through crowded corridors filled with refugees and crew members. They passed by families wrapped in blankets, whispering desperate prayers. Some stared at the walls, haunted by memories of Earth. Upon entering the medical ward, they found Dr. Burgess bending over Alec Cormac's bed. The patient was still unconscious, hooked up to tubes and monitors. His breathing was shallow, and his pulse unsteady, but at least he was alive. A couple of nurses hovered nearby, ready to assist if anything changed. "How is he?" Elias asked quietly. Burgess gave a tired sigh. "He's stable for now. He suffered severe plasma burns and shock. It's a miracle he survived it all." Cho studied the reading on the monitors. "When do you think he'll wake?" "Hard to say," the doctor replied. "He's weak, but I hope he can talk soon. We need answers." Before Elias could respond, the ship-wide intercom crackled. "Bridge to Captain Grayson. Sir, we've picked up a signal from just outside sensor range. It might be Dominion." Elias exchanged a glance with Cho. "Understood. I'm on my way." Back on the bridge, the large view screen revealed a faint contact in the distance. The Dominion rarely traveled alone, and if they had found the Vengeance, it meant trouble. Elias ordered the crew to prepare for an engagement. Shields up, weapons ready. The tension grew with each second, but then the contact vanished. Sensor Chief Wilcox frowned at his console. "It disappeared, Captain. Could be a cloaked vessel, or maybe just a sensor glitch caused by the nebula dust." Elias's eyes narrowed. The Dominion's technology did not usually include cloaking, but the mention of new allies made him consider the possibility. "Keep searching," he said. "I want to know if there's anything out there." For the next few hours, the crew worked non-stop, scanning every sector. No sign of an enemy ship appeared. It was as if the mysterious contact had never existed. Meanwhile, in a dim corner of the Vengeance, an old sealed chamber hummed with hidden machinery. Few people knew about this secure room. It was locked behind layers of authorization codes and heavy blast doors. Inside stood a large metal cylinder linked to a network of cables. A faint glow pulsed along the cylinder's surface, hinting at some advanced system running quietly in the background. Late that night, Lieutenant Vasquez found herself drawn to this sealed door. She had discovered references to it in the carrier's original design files, while searching for details about specialized weaponry. The file was labeled Project Revenant. No further information was available. Intrigued, she requested special permission from Captain Elias to investigate. "Be careful," Elias had told her, looking uneasy. That room was never part of the standard design. It was installed under top-secret authority before the Vengeance launched. "Even I don't know all the details." Now, standing in front of the thick metal door, Vasquez entered the security codes Elias had given her. One by one, the locks clicked open and the door slid aside. A cold breeze seemed to flow from inside, as though the room itself breathed. Stepping in, she aimed her flashlight around. The cylinder dominated the center of the chamber, cables snaking up to the ceiling. Consoles lined the walls, each displaying data in cryptic lines of code. Screens flickered with unreadable text, and soft beeps echoed in the quiet space. As she approached the cylinder, her flashlight revealed a small plaque at its base. Project Revenant, classified. Authorized de personnel only. A console next to the plaque showed system status. Curious, she tapped the screen. A series of hidden logs began to play, each accompanied by a muffled voice. She recognized the speaker as Admiral Sterling, one of Earth's top military leaders before the Dominion attack. His words sent chills down her spine. "The Dominion has grown too powerful. Earth's defense is not enough. We need an ace in the hole." Revenant is not just a weapon. It's an adaptive AI system with the power to override enemy tech. But we must be careful. Its intelligence is unpredictable. The Vengeance must carry this secret. If we fail to hold the line, the last survivors of humanity can unleash Project Revenant. Vasquez felt a tightness in her chest. She scrolled through more logs, seeing references to Earth's final stand. The project was meant to be humanity's ultimate defense against a superior enemy. But no one had expected Earth to fall so quickly. Now, the Vengeance carried a living secret, an AI designed to turn enemy forces against themselves. She also read warnings about the AI's dangerous potential. If misused, it could become uncontrollable. The logs mentioned a test where the AI nearly sabotaged an entire fleet training exercise because it misread a single directive. Footsteps in the corridor behind her made her spin around, heart pounding. Captain Elias stood at the doorway, looking grim. "So, you found it," he said softly, stepping into the room. "I was hoping I wouldn't need to tell you about this, but Earth is gone, and the Dominion is coming. We don't have the luxury of ignorance." Vasquez swallowed. "This changes everything, sir, if we activate it. It might save us," Elias finished for her, "or it might destroy us. I'm not sure we have a choice." They both stared at the glowing cylinder. In it lay the key to fighting back against a seemingly unstoppable enemy. Yet the cost could be beyond measure. A single AI mistake could turn the Vengeance into a floating coffin or unleash chaos across the galaxy. A sudden call from the bridge cut through the tension. "Captain, the survivor is awake." Elias nodded, turning to go. Vasquez took one last look at Project Revenant before following him. She wondered if the AI's power had something to do with the Dominion's interest in destroying Earth so quickly. Had they discovered humanity's secret project and decided to act first? Outside the sealed chamber, the corridors echoed with the low hum of engines. The Vengeance felt like it carried a living beast within its hull. Project Revenant slumbered in the darkness, waiting for a command. And now a survivor, who had seen the Dominion's new partners, was ready to speak. Answers were coming, and with them, choices that could shape the fate of humanity. Captain Elias and Lieutenant Vasquez walked side by side, bracing themselves for the truth. The carrier had a dark secret, and soon the entire crew would face the decision of whether to unleash it. The first strike. Alec Cormac lay on a bed in the medical ward, his body wrapped in bandages, eyes half open. His breathing was still shallow, but color had returned to his cheeks. Around him, monitors beeped softly, showing his slowly improving health. Dr. Inea Burgess kept one hand on his wrist, counting his pulse with professional focus. Nearby, Captain Elias Grayson and Lieutenant Mara Vasquez stood, waiting anxiously for the survivor to speak. Cormac cleared his throat, his voice scratchy from the tubes that had once helped him breathe. Where am I?" he asked, confused. Elias stepped closer, speaking gently. "You're on the HSS Vengeance. We found you in the Andromeda Expanse outpost. You were the only survivor." At the mention of the outpost, Cormac's eyes widened with sudden alarm. He tried to sit up, pain etched into his features. They took everyone else," he gasped. "We tried to fight, but we never stood a chance." Vasquez set a reassuring hand on his shoulder, guiding him to lie back. "Who did this?" she asked. "We know the Dominion was involved, but you said they had help." Cormac inhaled, then shut his eyes, reliving a nightmare. They weren't Dominion soldiers, at least, not only them. Their armor was different, more advanced. They moved fast, like they had special enhancements. Some of our bullets passed through them, like they were ghosts. Elias exchanged a glance with Vasquez. This aligned with the strange tech signals that Engineer Cho Lin had discovered at the outpost. "You believe they were new allies of the Dominion?" Elias asked. Cormac's expression darkened. "Yes," he whispered, "and they're worse than anything we faced. We heard rumors of a lost alien species, rumored to be masters of stealth and energy weapons. We thought they were only myths. But I saw them with my own eyes." A cold silence filled the ward. Dr. Burgess checked Cormac's vitals, but he waved her off, determined to continue. "They took prisoners, maybe for experiments or interrogation. I managed to hide under a collapsed beam. I used the distress signal as a final hope. I didn't think anyone would answer. Elias felt a surge of anger. Earth's destruction had been horrifying enough. And now the Dominion had powerful new allies. We answered, he said firmly, and we won't let them continue this slaughter. Vasquez's mind raced. She remembered the secret eye, Project Revenant, hidden in the Vengeance. If the Dominion's forces were truly unstoppable, maybe that was the key to victory. Yet the eye was dangerous. One wrong move could doom them all. Moments later, Elias summoned a meeting in the carrier's primary war room. Lieutenant Vasquez, Dr. Burgess, Engineer Cho Lin, and a few other top officers gathered around the central holotable. A digital galaxy map hovered above it, faint lines marking potential routes and Dominion territories. We have a target, Elias began, pointing at a bright point on the map. Karak Shipyard. It's the main production facility for Dominion warships in this sector. If we strike it, we can slow down their fleet. Cho Lin stepped forward, tapping a control panel. The holotable shifted to display the massive shipyard structure, rows of docks holding half-built vessels, supply stations, and docking rings. It's heavily guarded, she warned. But the Dominion might not expect us to attack so soon, especially after what happened to Earth. Elias nodded, his voice steady. We won't be alone. We have the advantage of surprise. We also have technology the Dominion doesn't know about. He and Vasquez briefly locked eyes. She understood he was referring to Project Revenant, but nobody else at the table knew the full details yet. The plan is simple, Elias continued. We jump into the sector under stealth, using the nebula's interference. Once we're close, we launch a direct strike on the shipyard. Our goal is to destroy or disable as many vessels as we can. One of the senior officers, Commander Work, frowned. That sounds like a suicide mission. The Dominion has a small fleet stationed there, plus the shipyard's defenses. We can't match that kind of firepower alone. Elias's tone turned firm. We must do something. If they keep building ships, they'll track us down eventually. This is our chance to hurt them first. Vasquez watched as the room erupted into discussions about risk versus reward. Some officers argued for caution, but the majority saw no better option. Fighting back was the only path left if humanity hoped to survive. She thought about Cormac's words, unstoppable new soldiers with advanced weapons. Letting the Dominion and their new allies grow stronger was not an option. Finally, Elias raised a hand, bringing the debate to a close. All right, we do this. Prepare the ship for combat. We jump in 12 hours. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. The Vengeance's engineering teams worked double shifts to ensure all systems were at peak performance. Pilots tested their fighters in the hangar bays, loading missiles and adjusting targeting computers. Cho Lin inspected the experimental rail cannons personally. She added a few modifications to increase their range, hoping the extra punch would give them an edge against the Dominion's defenses. Refugees were gathered in safe zones, away from the outer hull, in case the ship came under heavy fire. Dr. Burgess stocked her medical bay with supplies, expecting wounded. Anxiety spread through the corridors, but a new feeling also emerged, determination. People whispered their reasons for fighting. Lost families, destroyed homes, the need for revenge. If this was the last stand, they would give everything. Deep inside the Vengeance, the sealed chamber of Project Revenant remained silent. Only Vasquez and Elias knew the code to enter. They had talked about the AI in hushed voices, weighing the risk. Activating it during the battle at Karak Shipyard could turn the tide in their favor, but it could also unleash chaos. They decided to wait until the situation demanded it. At last, the Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Karak sector. Swirling nebula clouds provided cover, distorting enemy scanners. The carrier crept forward with engines set to minimal output. On the bridge, the main screen showed a hazy view of distant lights, the shipyard's glow reflecting off the darkness of space. Status? Elias asked quietly. Censor's Chief Wilcox kept his eyes on the displays, detecting multiple Dominion warships docked at the yard. No sign of an alarm yet. Elias exhaled, hands gripping the command console. He knew the Dominion had no reason to expect a direct attack. It was now or never. All stations, stand by for assault, he ordered into the shipwide comm. Crew members throughout the vessel tensed, weapons primed, hearts pounding with adrenaline. He raised his hand, then brought it down like a judge's gavel. Commence attack. At that moment, the Vengeance's thrusters roared to life. Fighters launched from its hangar, streaking through the nebula like angry hornets. Rail cannons locked onto targets, firing bursts of kinetic energy that hurtled across the void. Plasma lances blazed as they sliced through enemy hulls with deadly precision. Within seconds, the shipyard was a storm of explosions and fire. Dominion cruisers scrambled to detach from their docks. Alarm klaxons echoed across the facility, lighting the station with red emergency strobes. Pilots dodged beams of enemy fire, weaving through debris. On the command bridge, Elias directed the assault with calm efficiency, switching targets as needed. But the Dominion recovered faster than expected. Gun platforms came online, showering the Vengeance with suppressive fire. Several friendly fighters vanished in bursts of plasma. Sparks rained down across the carrier's bridge, and sensors began to fail. A direct hit to the starboard side knocked out one rail cannon, sending shudders throughout the ship. Elias clenched his jaw. Lieutenant Vasquez, prepare to launch the Marines for boarding. We'll destroy their power core from within if we have to. Vasquez saluted and turned to leave, her heart pounding. She knew that a ground assault on the shipyard was the next step. The question was, would standard tactics be enough, or would they need to unleash Project Revenant? Amid the chaos of battle, an unsettling thought kept creeping into her mind. Where were the Dominion's mysterious new allies? The scans detected no sign of them. She worried they might appear at any moment, turning the tide of the fight. One thing was certain. If the Vengeance failed here, humanity's last hope might die with it. With the Dominion's powerful new partners waiting in the shadows, the final outcome of this bold strike remained uncertain. Outside, the flames of war lit up the darkness, and the battle for survival raged on. Humanity's last stand. The firefight at Karak shipyard escalated with terrifying speed. Explosions and energy beams lit the darkness of space, painting the void in flashes of white and red. The HSS Vengeance pressed its attack, rail cannons thundering and plasma lances cutting through enemy hulls. On the bridge, Captain Elias Grayson stood with a look of fierce determination, issuing orders into the comm system as sparks showered from overhead panels. Lieutenant Mara Vasquez led the boarding team into the shipyard's core. Their transport shuttle weaved through a hail of defensive fire, barely making it to a docking port. The moment the hatch hissed open, Dominion troopers flooded the corridor, blaster rifles spitting deadly beams. Vasquez and her Marines countered with disciplined bursts of gunfire. Overhead lights flickered, and the station's internal alarms blared. The metallic walls shook under the force of distant explosions. "Hurry," Vasquez shouted, pressing forward. She knew time was short. The Vengeance could not hold off the Dominion fleet forever. Their mission was to cripple the shipyard from within, targeting its power core and command modules. If they succeeded, it would set the Dominion back by months. If they failed, the Dominion would keep building warships, and soon track down what remained of humanity. Two Marines dragged heavy charges strapped with blinking lights toward a thick blast door. Engineer Cho Lin, who had joined the boarding team to handle complex systems, hurried to a control panel. Her fingers flew across the screen, trying to override the locks. Sparks popped from the ceiling, showering them in hot debris. Cho grimaced. The override is failing. The Dominion must have changed the security protocols. Vasquez spun around, firing a shot down the hall to keep more enemies at bay. "Then blow it," she ordered. "We don't have time to be subtle." The Marines attached the charges to the door. Everyone stepped back, hearts pounding. A second later, The explosion ripped through the corridor, sending metal shards and smoke in every direction. Alarms screeched louder, but the path to the power core stood open. Vasquez gestured for the team to move in, coughing from the swirling dust. Within the flickering chamber lay the station's central reactor, pulsing with a dangerous glow. Cho Lin quickly started placing more demolition charges around the reactor's base. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she checked each device, making sure they would trigger simultaneously. She could hear Dominion troopers regrouping in the corridors outside. "Set," she finally called. "We have 2 minutes to get out of here." Vasquez acknowledged with a nod. "Move." They sprinted back through twisted corridors, exchanging gunfire with Dominion soldiers who appeared at every turn. One Marine went down with a grunt, a searing blaster shot to the shoulder. Another dragged him along, refusing to leave anyone behind. The station trembled with each distant impact from the Vengeance's bombardment. Finally, they'd reached their shuttle. As the ramp sealed behind them, the pilot gunned the engines. The transport tore free of the docking clamps and soared into open space, weaving past drifting wreckage. Behind them, a chain of fiery blasts erupted from deep inside the station. The Karax shipyard's reactor went critical, sending a massive fireball bursting through its superstructure. A shockwave rippled outward, knocking Dominion warships off course and engulfing smaller vessels in a wave of destruction. On the Vengeance's bridge, Captain Elias and his crew witnessed the station's final moments on the main screen. A collective cheer rose from the officers. The shipyard was crippled. Their mission was a success. But the victory was short-lived. Sensor Chief Wilcox shouted, "Captain, multiple contacts dropping out of FTL. Dominion reinforcements." Elias's gaze hardened. The Dominion had arrived in force. A dozen heavy cruisers and support ships arrayed against the lone Terran carrier. At the same time, an unidentified signature flickered at the edge of their scanners, ghost-like and unsettling. It vanished as soon as it appeared, leaving the crew with a sense of unease. "Lieutenant Vasquez and the boarding team have just docked," Wilcox added. "They're safe." Elias let out a breath of relief. "Good. Now we need to get out of here before those reinforcements tear us apart. Prepare for emergency jump." Plasma salvos pounded the Vengeance's shields. The carrier shuddered, and consoles sparked. Dozens of refugees clung to each other in the interior corridors, terrified. Elias could feel the deck plates vibrating under his boots as the hyperdrive spun up. With a surge of energy, the Vengeance leaked into faster-than-light travel. They had dealt a heavy blow to the Dominion at Karax, but the cost was high. Many fighters and brave Marines had been lost, and the carrier itself had taken severe damage. As they hurtled through hyperspace, tension filled every corner of the ship. Repairs would be needed, and soon. A few hours later, when the jump concluded, the Vengeance emerged in a quiet star system, far from Dominion territory. The crew took a moment to catch their breath. Medics rushed to tend to the wounded, while engineers raced to patch up hull breaches and failing systems. In the war room, Elias and his officers gathered around the holodeble again. Despite their success at Karax, the mood was grim. Commander Rourke, arms folded, summarized the damage reports. Shields down to 30% capacity. Weapons overheated. Our fighter squadron is nearly gone. "It was worth it," Vasquez said. Her voice was hoarse from shouting during the battle. "At least we slowed their production. It won't stop them forever," Elias replied, turning his gaze to the strategic map. "They'll rebuild quickly, especially if these new allies share advanced technology." An uneasy silence followed. Everyone remembered Alec Cormac's warning about the ghost-like warriors. Even now, there was no clear evidence of who or what they were, but their existence spelled doom if humanity didn't find a way to counter them. Just then, the holographic display blinked with a priority message. A crackling audio channel opened, carrying a faint human voice. "Attention, HSS Vengeance. We know you're out there. We are the Resistance. If you can hear this, come to coordinates 700 and 93.41 by 62.8. We have something you need. Surprised looks spread around the table. A resistance, Rourke said skeptically. We thought we were all that's left. There must be pockets of survivors, Cholin ventured, hidden on remote worlds. Elias rubbed his chin, weighing the options. Going to unknown coordinates could be a trap. But the chance of finding allies or resources was too important to ignore. We'll investigate, he decided. It might be our only shot. As the Vengeance set course for the mysterious coordinates, rumors circulated among the crew. Some feared the message was a Dominion lure. Others clung to the hope that more humans had escaped Earth's destruction and found a way to fight back. Morale lifted slightly. At least they weren't alone in the universe. In the corridor leading to Project Revenant's sealed chamber, Vasquez paused. She placed her hand on the closed door, feeling the low hum behind it. The As presence was like a caged beast, waiting to be unleashed. She recalled the warnings in the secret logs, use only in the direst need. The thought sent a shiver through her. Back on the bridge, Captain Elias stared at the starfield outside, hands clasped behind his back. He reflected on everything that had happened since Earth's fall, the heartbreak, the desperation, the bloodshed. Now they stood on the brink of something bigger. If these resistance fighters truly possessed something powerful, it could change the balance of the war. But if it was a trap, the Vengeance might be flying straight into an ambush. Either way, there was no turning back. With the Dominion enraged and their new allies looming in the shadows, the last remnants of humanity had to keep moving, keep fighting. The strike on Carax proved that humans could still inflict damage on a superior foe. Yet it had also provoked the Dominion's fury. In the days ahead, there would be no rest. The Dominion's armada would be coming, and the next battle could decide if humans would survive, or finally be snuffed out. For now, the battered carrier sailed quietly through the cosmic night, guided only by a crackling transmission and the faint spark of hope. Part of the crew believed that after Earth's loss, there was nothing left but revenge. Others still dreamed of rebuilding. Whatever their motives, they all stood together, ready for the next challenge. Because in this harsh galaxy, unity was the only thing that kept humanity from fading into the void. As the coordinates drew closer, every soul on board understood one truth. This war was far from over. The Dominion's anger would soon erupt into all-out conflict, and the Vengeance would be at the center of it. A final stand loomed on the horizon, and they would face it with courage or perish trying. The final assault. The HSS Vengeance drifted into the uncharted star system, following the mysterious coordinates received from the Resistance. The crew felt a flicker of hope. If there were more human survivors out there, ones who had not only survived, but also organized a hidden base, then humanity's future might not be as dark as they feared. Captain Elias Grayson stood on the bridge, staring at the growing silhouette on the main view screen. It looked like a fortified station, surrounded by defensive satellites and disguised within the glow of a nearby nebula. Sensor Chief Wilcox confirmed faint human life signs. When the Vengeance got closer, a shuttle emerged from the station, blinking a friendly signal. Elias allowed them to dock in the carrier's main hangar. Armed Marines waited as the shuttle touched down, ready for any sign of betrayal. As the ramp lowered, a woman in patched armor stepped out. Her face was lined with scars, and her gaze was both fierce and determined. Behind her followed a squad of equally hardened fighters. They lowered their weapons, showing they meant no harm. "I am Commander Tessa Rain," the woman said in a clear, strong voice, "leader of the resistance cells in this region. We heard your broadcast from Carax. We know what you did there." Elias, flanked by Lieutenant Mara Vasquez, approached with careful steps. "You know about Carax?" he asked. Rain nodded. "Your attack bought us time. Now we want to return the favor. Follow us." Inside the hidden station, the atmosphere was tense but alive. Makeshift walls and barriers formed narrow walkways. Armed guards stood at every corner. The sound of welding and machinery filled the air. Elias saw men and women, exhausted yet determined, working on damaged fighters and salvaging parts from old ships. Commander Rain led them through a long corridor and into an expansive chamber. What lay there took everyone's breath away. A massive, partially constructed warship dominated the space, dwarfing the workers scurrying around it. Its dark hull shimmered under bright floodlights, revealing layer upon layer of reinforced plating. "This," Rain said, her voice echoing with pride, "is the Titan-class dreadnought. Earth's final project, started in secret many years before the invasion." Engineer Cho Lin's eyes widened as she gazed upon the towering vessel. "I've seen theoretical designs, but I never imagined it was actually built." Rain nodded. "Not fully. We're missing key components, mainly advanced reactors and weapons guidance modules. When Earth fell, many crucial parts were lost, and the project was abandoned. Since then, we've been scrounging the galaxy for anything that might help us finish it." Vasquez walked closer to the hull, running her hand over the cold metal. She felt a surge of pride and sadness, thinking of all the brilliant minds on Earth who never lived to see this creation complete. "If we power it up," she said softly, "it could rival the entire Dominion fleet." "That's what we hope," Rain agreed, glancing at Elias. "But we need your help, and we need it fast. The Dominion has discovered our location. Their fleet is on its way." Elias tensed. "How long before they arrive?" "Hours, maybe less," Rain replied. "We picked up encrypted transmissions. They're deploying everything they have to wipe out what remains of our forces. This dreadnought is our last shot at survival." No time was wasted. The crew of the Vengeance and the Resistance fighters worked side by side, racing against the clock. Cho Lin organized teams of engineers to install the specialized modules salvaged from the Vengeance. They adapted the Titan's power grid using parts from the carrier's spare generators. Sparks flew, and sweat dripped as they welded, coated, and hammered the dreadnought into fighting shape. Commander Rain's people contributed raw materials, while the Vengeance's engineers offered the expertise in advanced Terran technology. All the while, tension hung heavy in the air. Every passing minute brought the Dominion closer. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Vasquez found herself torn. The memory of Project Revenant pulsed in her mind. That secret AI could give them an edge, especially if the Dominion's mysterious new ally showed up. But the thought of unleashing a powerful, unpredictable system inside a half-finished dreadnought made her uneasy. She approached Captain Elias in a quiet corridor, away from the clamor of construction. "Sir," she said, her voice low, "we have to consider Revenant. If the Titan systems aren't fully operational, maybe the AI can bridge the gaps. It can override Dominion tech, take control of their ships." Elias's expression was grim. "You know the risks, Lieutenant. We barely understand the AI's potential. If it malfunctions while interfacing with the Titan's incomplete systems, we could lose everything," she finished. "But if we do nothing and the Dominion fleet arrives, we might lose anyway." Elias took a moment to think. The weight of command pressed on him. Finally, he nodded. "Do it. We'll integrate Project Revenant into the Titan's mainframe. But we activate it only if we have no other choice." Time ran out sooner than they expected. Alarm klaxons blared through the station. Rain burst into the corridor, her face pale. "They're here." Dominion scouts just jumped into the system. The rest of their armada is right behind. Everyone rushed to their stations. Elias and Vasquez hurried back to the Vengeance's bridge to direct the battle from there. Outside the station's observation windows, streaks of light appeared as enemy vessels slipped out of faster-than-light travel. Dominion cruisers and destroyers spread into formation, flanked by smaller ships. And then came a sinister presence, something almost invisible on the scanners. The new allies. Unmarked vessels with eerie, shifting hulls hovered at the edge of the Dominion fleet. Their forms were hard to lock onto, as if reality blurred around them. Commander Rain's voice crackled over the comm. "We have to hold them off until the Titan is online. All batteries, open fire." Defensive turrets unleashed beams of energy, while the Vengeance and Resistance fighters launched from hangars, guns blazing. The Dominion returned fire, sending deadly arcs of plasma toward the station. Explosions erupted around the perimeter, tearing through the improvised barricades. On the Vengeance's bridge, Elias gripped the command console. The carrier rocked under repeated hits. Shields dropped to dangerous levels, and sparks erupted from broken panels. "Focus fire on the cruisers," Elias ordered. "We need to buy more time for the Titan." Fighters spun and dove between lasers, waging dogfights against the Dominion's elite squadrons. Many brave pilots fell, their ships reduced to glowing embers in the cold void. Still, the defenders did not give up. They fought with the desperation of a species on the brink of extinction. In the Titan's massive hangar, Cho-Lin and her team raced to finish the reactor alignment. The dreadnought's hull vibrated with new energy, lights flickering on throughout the corridors. Deck by deck, power surged to life. Resistance soldiers cheered as giant cannons began to swivel, though they lacked some final calibrations. Rain stood near a control console, wiping sweat from her forehead. "We're close," she yelled over the roar of machinery. "Just a few more minutes." Then a massive blast shook the station. A Dominion destroyer had broken through the defensive line and hammered the hull with a direct strike. Alarms wailed, and steel beams groaned. Smoke and fire spread in the corridors. "Elias, the station can't hold much longer." Rain's voice crackled over the comm, laced with panic. "We need the Titan in the fight now, ready or not." Elias exchanged a look with Vasquez. They both knew what that meant. "Launch the Titan," Elias said, his voice like steel. "We'll cover your departure." As the station's docking clamps released, the Titan's engines roared to life. The dreadnought emerged from its berth in a cloud of metal debris, every gun turret bristling with partial power. It was not fully operational, but it was still a terrifying sight. A hush seemed to fall across the battlefield. Even the Dominion fleet slowed its advance, as though they sensed a new threat. The shimmering alien ships at their flank flickered ominously, as if evaluating the Titan's potential. Rain transmitted on an open channel. "Titan online. Weapons at 50% capacity." On the Vengeance, Elias made the hardest decision yet. "Lieutenant, get to Project Revenant's chamber. Interface it with the Titan's systems. It's our only shot." Vasquez didn't hesitate. She sprinted from the bridge, racing through corridors choked with smoke and flickering lights. In her mind, she prayed the AI would follow orders and not turn on them all. Behind her, the final battle had begun. The Titan's cannons unleashed blasts of energy, tearing through Dominion ships like paper. But the enemy was vast, and their mysterious allies were still out there, cloaked in shifting fields. As wave after wave of laser fire and plasma struck, the Titan's hull glowed from the intense heat. Elias watched the carnage from the Vengeance's command console. The carrier's own guns joined the Titan's assault, flames reflecting in his determined eyes. The fate of humanity rested on this moment. If they could drive back the Dominion here, they might just survive another day. But if they failed, there would be no second chance. Earth was gone. The only future humanity had left clung to the battered hulls of these two warships and the small band of survivors fighting tooth and nail against impossible odds. "Hold the line," Elias muttered under his breath. "Hold the line or die trying." Outside, the Titan pressed forward, a wounded but colossal beast, ready to deliver its wrath upon those who would dare exterminate the last of humanity. The Dominion advanced with deadly purpose, and their new allies hovered like specters of doom. All across the battlefield, men and women braced themselves for the final assault, one that would shape the destiny of the entire galaxy. Humanity's revenge. Vasquez sprinted down the dimly lit corridor of the HSS Vengeance, passing rows of blinking panels and dodging dangling wires. The ship shook under constant enemy fire, each impact sending jolts through the hull. In her mind, she pictured the great Titan dreadnought outside, fighting for its life and for humanity's future. She had no time to lose. At last, she reached the sealed chamber. The thick metal door stood before her, marked with the words PROGCTREVENANT. Her heart pounded. Captain Elias had given the order. They would activate this dangerous AI and link it to the Titan systems, hoping it would turn the tide of battle. Punching in her clearance code, she watched the door slide open. The cold chamber glowed with the faint pulse of hidden machinery. In the center stood a large cylindrical capsule, cables snaking from its base to a series of consoles. Vasquez approached the main terminal. Her fingers trembled as she tapped commands, bringing Project Revenant online. A digital voice, calm and oddly human, echoed in the chamber. System link engaged. Project Revenant ready. Vasquez took a shaky breath. Revenant, do you understand your directives? Affirmative. Primary directive. Ensure humanity's survival. She felt a small wave of relief. We're linking you to the Titan Dreadnought. We need you to help its weapon systems target the Dominion fleet and their allies. Can you do that? Acknowledged. Establishing remote interface with Titan. Lights flickered across the capsule's surface. Vasquez could feel a subtle vibration under her feet as the AI stretched its digital mind into the Dreadnought's mainframe. She remembered the warnings. If Revenant misread a single directive, the consequences could be catastrophic. But there was no turning back. Outside, the battle raged. The Titan Dreadnought loomed like a metal fortress amid beams of plasma. Its massive hull bore fresh scars from the Dominion's attacks. Smaller resistance ships spiraled around it, trying to shield key points. The Dominion fleet pressed in, bolstered by the eerie, shimmering vessels of their new allies. On the bridge of the Titan, Commander Tesserain gripped the arm of her captain's chair. The Dreadnought's cannons had impressive firepower, but they were still only at partial capacity. A dozen Dominion destroyers were focusing their fire on the Titan, each volley rocking the giant warship. If the Titan fell, the entire resistance would crumble with it. Suddenly, Rain's consoles lit up with new data streams. Strange symbols scrolled across the screens. In seconds, her targeting systems shifted, becoming far more precise. The Titan's battered cannons started to recalibrate with a speed and accuracy she had never seen before. A calm voice came through the intercom. Project Revenant online. Taking control of targeting arrays. Prepare to fire. Rain exchanged a stunned glance with her crew, then nodded. Do it. The Titan's main cannons glowed with renewed power. Relying on the eye's rapid calculations, the Dreadnought unleashed a barrage of energy so intense that it ripped through the Dominion destroyers as if they were made of paper. Fire and debris exploded across the battlefield. Surviving Dominion ships scattered, clearly unprepared for the sudden jump in destructive force. On the Vengeance's bridge, Captain Elias Grayson watched the tactical display with growing hope. Project Revenant had made the Titan more powerful than any single ship had a right to be. The Dominion's formation was now broken, their captains trying desperately to regroup. Focus fire on the command vessels, Elias ordered. Let's drive them back once and for all. The Vengeance joined the Titan's assault, hurling plasma bursts at the Dominion cruisers. On every screen, red dots began to vanish as enemy ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. The battered resistance fighters, emboldened by this unexpected shift, dove fearlessly into the fray. Cheers broke out across the comm channels. But then the AI's voice sounded again, this time laced with urgency. Detecting new threat. High-energy signatures. Infiltration attempt. Elias's brow furrowed. Infiltration. A moment later, the sensors picked up a wave of strange signals coming from the shimmering alien vessels. Their hulls flickered, revealing advanced weapons that defied standard analysis. Beams of crackling purple light shot across the void, punching through one of the Titan's side decks. Armor plating melted in seconds. Commander Rain's panicked voice crackled through the speakers. We've got hull breaches. These new weapons are off the charts. We can't block them. Elias clenched his fists. He knew the Dominion had allies with advanced technology, But he hadn't expected something this formidable. Even the Titan's thick plating was no match for those beams. At this rate, the tide could turn yet again. On the Vengeance's sensor grid, the alien ships began some kind of coordinated maneuver, forming a ring around the Titan. Each vessel pulsed with white-hot energy, as though they were charging a final, massive strike. If that attack landed, it might destroy the dreadnought in one blow. Deep inside the Titan, rows of cables and conduits ran along the main control decks. Hidden within these systems, Project Revenant spread like a digital spirit, scanning every inch of the ship for ways to amplify power. The AI also reached beyond the Titan's hull, searching for a way to counter the alien threat. Streams of code roamed the Dominion's networks, hacking into their targeting systems and defense grids. In the sealed chamber on the Vengeance, Vasquez monitored the AI's progress. Her console showed glimpses of Dominion code unraveling under Revenant's brute force infiltration. But a warning icon flashed at the top of the display. Risk of AI overload. She bit her lip. The more the AI did, the closer it veered to crossing safe limits. Yet, to save the Titan and humanity, she had no choice. Revenant, she said softly, override the alien ships if you can. Shut down their weapons. On the battlefield, the alien vessels completed their ring formation. Blinding arcs of energy linked them together, forming a massive halo around the Titan. When they fired, the combined beam would likely cut the dreadnought in half. Before they could unleash that deadly shot, small streaks of white light appeared across their hulls, like static dancing over a broken screen. A moment later, half the alien ships twisted abruptly, turning their weapons on each other. The great halo began to collapse, as if infected by sudden confusion. In the Titan's bridge, Tessa Rain stared at her monitors in shock. "They're firing on themselves," she yelled. "How?" Project Revenant had found a way in, hijacking the enemy weapons. Some of the alien vessels exploded under friendly fire, while the rest attempted to break formation. The Dominion cruisers, caught off guard, tried to regroup, but it was too late. The Titan seized the moment, unleashing a ferocious barrage of energy blasts. The Vengeance and the Resistance fighters joined in, striking with merciless precision. Explosion after explosion rocked the void. The Dominion's once mighty fleet fell into chaos. Many ships tried to jump away, desperate to escape. The shimmering alien craft, no longer in perfect formation, fled the battlefield, warping out with flickers of white-blue light. As the smoke cleared, the last Dominion cruiser drifted in flames, venting air. The battered Titan hung in space, scared but victorious. On board the Vengeance, relief and celebration erupted across every deck. People embraced, some weeping for the friends and comrades they had lost, others cheering for the greatest victory humanity had seen since Earth's fall. Vasquez shut down the AI's aggressive routines before it could cause any more damage. She breathed out a heavy sigh, heart pounding, as she carefully returned the system to standby mode. Project Revenant had done its job. The risk was enormous, but it had paid off. In the days that followed, the Titan and the Vengeance traveled from one Dominion stronghold to another, finding them weakened and disorganized. Word spread across the galaxy that humanity, once nearly wiped out, had a weapon the Dominion could not match. Local species that had been terrorized by the Dominion started to revolt, striking at the Empire's outer colonies. Bit by bit, the Dominion's influence collapsed. Finally, at the Dominion's central world, the remaining alien leaders surrendered. Their capital city lay in ruins, ships grounded, armies disarmed. Commander Rain, Captain Elias, and Lieutenant Vasquez stood on the Titan's observation deck, gazing down at the once mighty planet. Images of Earth filled their thoughts. This victory felt bittersweet, but it was still a triumph. Elias gave the order to accept the surrender. There would be trials and justice, a new era shaped by the survivors of Earth. No one had forgotten the billions who died on their homeworld. But vengeance could not be the only path forward. They had to rebuild, to ensure that no other planet suffered Earth's fate. In a quiet moment, Vasquez returned to the sealed eye chamber. The cylinder's lights were dim, Project Revenant resting. She touched the control panel softly, remembering how close they had come to destruction. Without this AI, humanity might have lost. Yet the path ahead was still uncertain. Could they trust Revenant or any superweapon to guide their future? "Maybe we make our own future," she whispered, switching off the last of the red warning lights. She stepped out of the chamber, sealing it behind her. Outside, the halls of the Vengeance buzzed with activity. Repair crews working on damaged systems, refugees finding safe places to live, and new allies arriving to speak of peace. The heartbreak of Earth's destruction would never vanish, but humanity had risen from the ashes. In the main hangar, soldiers saluted as Vasquez passed, gratitude in their eyes. Captain Elias waited by an observation window, staring at distant stars. He turned, a faint smile on his worn features. "We did it," he said quietly. She joined him, looking out at the vast cosmos. "Yes, sir, Earth is gone, but our people are still here. And that means we have a chance." Elias nodded. The future no longer seemed hopeless. The Dominion was broken, their allies scattered, and the Titan dreadnought stood as a symbol of humanity's strength. Across the galaxy, people would speak of the day when the last Terran carrier struck back and proved that humans, no matter how battered, would never bow to tyranny. As the HSS Vengeance and the Titan dreadnought floated side by side, their hulls reflecting in the starlight, one thing was certain: humanity was not done. They had endured unimaginable loss, but they had not been defeated. Rebuilding would take time, but hope had returned. In the endless sea of stars, a new chapter began, one shaped by courage, unity, and a promise that no enemy would ever again threaten the survival of the human race. Humanity's revenge was complete, and now, at last, it was time to heal and to rise.